Hello and welcome to History class. In this class, we will be introducing you into the history of Tamil Nadu and especially to the history of the Cholas. The history of Tamil Nadu was dominated by the three major dynasties, the Cholas, the Cheras and the Pandyas. They were all considered as the dynasties of Sangam era, and Pallavas were the late entrant to the Tamil politics. And the major takeaways from our discussion would be the Chola dynasty is one among the ancient most dynasties of South India, and Cholas were the naval superpowers of ancient and medieval India, and Cholas have done architectural wonders in Tanjavur and Gangaikonda Cholapuram, and more importantly the Cholas have had trade relations with the Romans and also with the Chinese. So, we will be discussing all these facts in our session. What are the major sources for the study of the Cholas? The two major sources that we will be studying are the Sangam literature and the inscriptions. The Sangam is a Tamil word which means a union, a gathering or an assembly. It is a literary union or it is the assembly of poets. So, these assemblies were organized by the Sangam kings. Most probably the Cholas, Cheras and Pandyas have organized these assemblies. The last Sangam was organized by the Pandya kings. These Sangams were held between 200 BCE to 500 CE. In a span of 700 years, some wonderful works were produced as far as history of Tamil Nadu is concerned, and the culture, traditions, it includes poems and long anthologies, the like. So, Sangam literature contained very useful information regarding the history and culture of Tamil Nadu. The three major famous Sangam works which help us to reconstruct the history of the Cholas were Tirukkural, Shilapadigaram and Manimegalai. This is important as far as examination is concerned. Tirukkural, Shilapadigaram and Manimegalai are the very important Sangam literary works. Then the next major source for our study are inscriptions. The inscriptions of Ashoka refer the people of Tamil Nadu as Satyaputras, and at the same time the inscriptions of the Chola kings also gives lot of information regarding the Chola history, their origin and etc. like. So, the major sources for the study of Cholas are Sangam literature and the inscriptions. Now, let us discuss about the political history of Cholas. During the Sangam time, that is by the ancient period, the Chola family's rule was commenced by Ilayan Chola. So, as known to history, Ilayan Chola was the first king of the Chola family. Ilayan Chola had made Urayur as his capital. Urayur is a modern Tiruchirappalli district. So, this was one of a cotton trade center of ancient time. After Ilayan Chola, the most important ruler of Sangam period was Karikala Chola. He was considered as a most powerful and a valiant ruler who had subdued their adversaries like the Cheras and the Pandyas. And he built a famous dam which is called Kalhane Dam. And he cleared a large tract of forest and made that land available for agriculture. And a water embankment was also created by him, thereby he added the prosperity of the Cholas. And his capital city was known as Kaveri Pattanam, today it is called as Puhar. The Sengunian Chola was the last known ancient Chola king, and thereafterwards there was no clarity regarding the history of the Cholas. There was a political chaos. But Cholas once again come to the forefront of politics during the medieval times. The first important ruler of the medieval times was Vijayala Chola, or is also called as Vijayalaya Chola. He established the Chola power in the 9th century. in the 9th century CE. He killed Aparajitavarman, the Pallava king, in 850 CE and thus established the Chola power once again in the south of Tamil Nadu. He made Tanjavur as his capital. Tanjavur was the capital of the medieval Cholas. From then onwards, Tanjavur remained as the Chola capital city. After the Vijayalaya Chola, the Aditya Chola and Parantaka first ruled respectively from Tanjavur. But here Parantaka Chola is remembered in history for his inscription that is called Uttaramerur inscription. So, two inscriptions were written in 919 and 921. Inscriptions were issued at Uttaramerur temple. On the temple wall, we find an inscription that speaks volumes about village autonomy and village administrative system. Then a major event of the medieval period of the Chola was the Takkolam battle. This was a battle fought between the Cholas and the Rashtrakutas. The Chola king Rajaditya Chola first and Rashtrakuta king Krishna III fought each other. In the battle, the Cholas were defeated and to an extent Cholas got decimated. And afterwards, Cholas once again made a comeback into the politics of Tamil Nadu with the rise of Rajaraja Chola and his son Rajendra Chola. So now we will concentrate on Rajaraja Chola and his political exploits. Rajaraja Chola was the son of Parantaka II and he was perhaps the greatest king of the Chola dynasty. He consolidated the Chola power which had been weakened by the Rashtrakuta invasions. The Takkolam battle of 949 CE has really decimated the Cholas and therefore consolidation was required. So that political consolidation was achieved by Rajaraja Chola first. Rajaraja Chola's military expeditions. The first military expedition of Rajaraja Chola was concentrated to south of India. To dominate the Tamil politics, one must defeat their adversaries, the Cheras and the Pandyas. So, he fought with them and achieved success and also fought with the Sri Lankan kings, that is, then it was called as Ceylon. At first he defeated Amarabhujanga, a Pandya king, and he got him arrested, and this is how Pandyas were subdued. And he destroyed the powerful navy of the Cheras, thus he got success against the Cheras too. And he also occupied the northern portion of Ceylon, that is modern day Sri Lanka. To commemorate this victory, he built a Shiva temple at Polennur. Then the northern conquest of Rajaraja Chola, to the north of Rajaraja's territory was the Ganga kingdom of Karnataka. So he attacked the cities of Gangavadi and Nolambavadi and occupied them. He also went to the extent of conquering Talakadu, which was the Ganga capital. And Talakadu was renamed as Rajarajapura also. Later, the inscriptions say he fought with the Kalyani Chalukya king Satyashraya, but the result was not known. Then major political exploits of Rajaraja was on Vengi. Rajaraja Chola interfered in the internal politics of the Vengi Chalukyas. There, by interfering in their politics, he placed Shaktivarma, a puppet of him, on the throne of Vengi. Later, that relationship was consolidated by conducting the Shaktivarma's marriage with his daughter Kundava. This marriage has consolidated the relationship between Rajaraja Chola and the Vengi Chalukyas. He donated much of the wealth obtained from Vengi Chalukyas for the construction of a famous Rajarajeshwara temple, which is also known as Brihadishwara temple. It was built in Tanjavur. Later, he went on a campaign to Kalinga and he won it also. Rajaraja took an expedition overseas. The major expedition that he took to overseas was to the islands of Lakshadweep and Maldives. He captured them. Later, he had established a good relationship with the king of Shailendra, that was of Srivijaya family of Indonesian island called Sumatra. He gave permission to the Srimara Vijayottungavarman, the king of Shailendra, to build Chudamani Buddhist Vihara in Nagapattinam. So that shows the relationship existed between the kings and king of Sumatra. Rajaraja Chola takes the credit of expanding the Chola empire, and his empire extended up to Ceylon in the south, Orissa in the north, Coorg and Konkan in the west, and Maldives in the east. That was the extent of the Rajaraja's territory. For all these glorious achievements, Rajaraja Chola had obtained titles. The various titles possessed by Rajaraja Chola are Shivapada Shekara, Cholendra Simha, Mummadi Chola Deva, Jayagonda, and Chola Martanda. So, for the examination point of view, these titles are to be remembered. Shivapada Shekara, Cholendra Simha, Mummadi Chola Deva, Jayagonda, and Chola Martanda. He was also known for his contribution to art and architecture. Today, Rajaraja Chola is remembered for the construction of the most famous Rajarajeshwara temple, that is also known as Brihadishwara temple. The temple was constructed in Tanjavur. He made liberal donations for the construction of temples across South India. Rajaraja Chola was succeeded by his son Rajendra Chola. He really took Cholas to the zenith and his period was marked in the history as golden age. Rajendra Chola succeeded his father. Earlier, Rajendra Chola had experience of serving as a crown prince or Yuvaraja. He was crowned as Yuvaraja in 1012 CE, and in 1014, with the death of his father, he became the Chola emperor. Rajendra Chola, like his father, he was also ambitious, and he too underwent various conquests. At first, he concentrated on Ceylon. In Ceylon, he defeated Mahendra V, who is also known as Mohinda, and he defeated him and got him arrested, and he was imprisoned at Tanjore. At the same time, he took possession of the Pandya king's crown and royal emblem, which was with Mahendra. Later, Mahendra died at Tanjore in prison. Then onwards, Ceylon became the part of Chola Empire. Then Rajendra Chola declared war against Jayasimha II, the Kalyani Chalukya king, in 1021, and he got him defeated. In the meanwhile, the Vengi Chalukya king called Vijayaditya came to the rescue of Jayasimha II, but Vijayaditya was subdued in the middle and he was defeated, and he was expelled from his empire. And in that place, a puppet was placed on the throne of Vengi, who is known as Rajaraja Narendra. Rajaraja Narendra's marriage was conducted with his daughter called Amanga Devi, and this marriage consolidated Chola and Vengi relationship. From Vengi, Rajendra's army rushed towards Orissa and defeated Mahipala I of Bengal. Afterwards, Rajendra's army continued up to the river Ganga and occupied the territories on the Ganga basin. From the holy Ganga river, the holy water was drawn and it was brought to the empire. And Rajendra Chola assumed a title called Gangai Konda Chola to mark this great victory. To mark this victory, he also constructed a capital city which is known as Gangai Konda Cholapuram. And later on, a tank was also built in memory of this victory, which is called Chola Gangam. Chola Gangam river has the distinction of got mixed with the water of holy Ganga river. So therefore, Chola Gangam is also considered as one of the greatest achievement of Rajendra Chola. In 1025 CE, Rajendra Chola took an expedition to Shailendra, that is kingdom of Srivijaya in Southeast Asia. With his powerful navy and army, he crossed over Bay of Bengal and he conquered the islands of Java, Sumatra, and he got defeated Sirimara Vijayatunga Varman, the king of Shailendra. In memory of this great victory, he constructed Gangai Konda Chola Shiva temple in Shailendra. So Rajendra Chola was an able administrator. He had made a liberal contribution to the learning also. He established a higher education temple at Ennairam, that is in the South Arcot district of Tamil Nadu in 1025 CE. Free boarding and lodging facilities were offered for 340 students at Ennairam. So that shows his commitment for the cause of education. Rajendra Chola had many titles. They were Pandita Chola. The titles were Pandita Chola, Gangai Konda Chola and Kedara Konda Deva. These were the titles of Rajendra Chola. Rajendra Chola had the distinction of increasing the dignity and honor of the Chola Empire. Let's now learn about the Chola administration. We learn the Chola administration in two parts. The first part we will look into the Chola central administration, and finally we will discuss about Chola village administration. Like all governmental systems, central government of the Cholas was very powerful and it had a centralized administrative mechanism where emperor was head of the government. The king here or emperor here was not absolute. He was not absolute, his power was not autocratic. All the powers of the king is shared by the crown prince and council of ministers and the rest of the bureaucrats. Let's see how it functioned. The crown prince played a crucial role in running the day-to-day administrations of the empire. The crown prince becoming the king was in practice, was in work. After the crown prince, there was a council of ministers who assisted the king in running the day-to-day administration. Besides this system, there was a group called as intimate group of a king who used to advise king on various crucial issues. That group was called as Udanakutam. So Udanakutam was an intimate group of king who gave king an expert advice. The divisions of the empire, the Chola Empire was divided like this. The first division of the Chola Empire may be called as a province, that is called Mandala. That was the first division of the Chola Empire, Mandala, and next unit was Nadu. It is also called as Nadu Kutam. Nadu Kutam, we can also say like that. Nadu was in turn divided into Vada Nadu, that is another division, but the lowest and the unit of administration was village called Grama, and village administration was carried out by Grama Sabha, an elected body of people. This is how the Chola administrative system like. On the top lies the emperor, who is the head of the government, but his powers were shared and he was not a dictator. His power was shared by the crown prince who was next to king, and under him comes the council of ministers, and besides the council of ministers there is an intimate group for king which is called as Udanakutam. This is how the emperor functioned, discharged his administration, and these are the administrative units. Administrative units. Administrative units. that is Mandala, Nadu, Vadanadu and Grama. So, Grama is the lowest level of administration under the Cholas. Now, we will be discussing about the Chola village administration. Chola village administration is very important because Cholas gave a lot of autonomy to their villages. Let us discuss how the Chola autonomy prevailed. Uttaramerur inscription of Parantaka first gives a clear view about the Chola village autonomy. The Uttaramerur inscription is found on the temple wall of Uttaramerur, which details us about the functioning of the Uttaramerur Grama Sabha. Let us see how it worked. Uttaramerur village was divided into 30 parts. That part was called as Kudumbu. That is called Kudumbu. And these 30 parts used to have members in each. These members were elected by the process of Kuduvalai. A member is elected for a period of 1 year. The process of election is called Kuduvalai. It is nothing but a lucky draw system. This is a lucky draw system through which the members were elected for the Chola village assembly. The villagers assembled in the temple on the day of election. So, election takes place in a village temple where all the people used to come, and the aspirants for the Chola village assembly used to enroll themselves, and such enrolled candidates' name were written on a palm leaf and which is put into a pot, and then a boy from the crowd is asked to pick the leaves of the palm leaves on which the candidate's name is written. In the presence of everybody, the child picks up the name. Such persons is declared elected. This is how the process of Kuduvalai take place. So, for each part, one member is elected. This is called Kuduvalai. So, Kuduvalai means lucky draw system of electing members to Chola village assembly. Then elected members or elected representatives have to work in various committees. The committees like annual committee, garden committee, tank bund committee. So, the committees works, takes care of the activities or administrative responsibilities of the village. The committees under Chola villages are called as Varyams. Varyams are village committees. So, Varyams take up the responsibility of looking after various aspects of the village. The representatives were called as Varyam Perumakkal. Member of a committee is called as Varyam Perumakkal. So, Varyam Perumakkal is just equivalent to a member of Panchayat member, what we use in our day-to-day life, The committees, such elected committees work for a period of 360 days. It is equal to an year. The village committees had to perform certain responsibilities, that is protection of village property, collection of taxes, protection of temples, lakes, gardens and the groves. These are the responsibilities of the village committees. The central administration never used to interfere in the aspects of village administration. The village administration looked after all the necessities and the needs of the village on its own. The village administrative system was so good that it had certain qualifications and disqualifications for a person to become a part of it. So, now let us look into the qualification part. A candidate should possess a minimum of half acre of taxable land. It is very important that a candidate should possess a taxable land which is a minimum of half acre. This is the first eligibility to be a member of the Chola village assembly. The second qualification is that one should reside in his own house built in his own site. So, he should have a permanent house of his own built in his own site. This is the second qualification. And the third qualification is a person should be more than 35 years of age and should be under or less than 70 years of age. This is the age limit to be part of the Chola village assembly. Another qualification is that he should possess the knowledge of Veda, Brahmanakas and commerce. These are the expected from a person to be village member. Then he should possess a good character. He should possess a good character. He should not be alcoholic, he should not be a thief, or he should not have accused of murdering a person like this. So, these are the qualifications. This is a very important. The qualification is candidate should possess a minimum of half acre of taxable land, should reside in his own house built in his own site, and should be more than 35 years and should be less than 70 years, and should possess the knowledge of Veda, Aranyakas, Brahmanakas and commerce, and should possess a good character. These are the 5 qualifications fixed and as per the Uttaramerur inscription. There are 3 disqualifications. A person is disqualified for a re-election if he is a member of any committee for the past 3 years. So, this is also an important disqualification. So, he should not be a member of village committee consecutively for 3 years. This one. The second one thing is those in the committee who do not submit the accounts and of his relatives are also disqualified. So, a person who once part of the committee must submit his income status to the Gram Sabha, and if he fails to do that, and he will be disqualified. And the third and very important, that is a person who is wicked and who is a cheat, who is an alcoholic and who was a thief and who is accused of murdering a Brahmana and also who is accused of committing adultery is not qualified to be a member of Chola village assembly. So, this Chola village autonomy shows us how good was the Chola village administration. The scholars have termed Chola village administrative system as a small democratic state. Chola village administrative system was described by the scholars as a small democratic state. These are the highlights of Chola village administration. So, we need to understand the fact that the Chola village autonomy was one of the highlights of Chola administration. So, this was clearly explained in Uttaramerur inscription. So, Uttaramerur inscription says that the village was divided into 30 part, which is called Kudumbu, and the members were elected to the Chola village assembly based upon a practice of Kuduvalai, and afterwards the members elected through Kuduvalai become form into various committees. These committees are called as Variyams, and member of the committees were called as Variyam Perumakkal. So, this is how Chola village administration functions. This is an important 5-mark essay question for the second PUC exam is concerned. Now, let us focus on the art and architecture of the Cholas. Cholas have made a best contribution to the field of art and architecture. The Cholas followed the Dravida style of architecture earlier followed by the Pallavas. So, they continued the Dravidian style of architecture. The temples built by the Cholas are huge and grand one. The Chola temples are huge and grand in size and structure. Shikaras are the highlights of the Chola temple construction. The Shikaras or Vimana, what we call it as Vimana, are the highlight of the Chola architecture. Tanjavur and Gangaikonda Cholapuram are the centers of Chola architecture. Tanjavur and Gangaikonda Cholapuram houses one of wonderful temples constructed by the Cholas. The Chola temples have Garbhagriha, Mahamantapa, Ardhamantapa, Nandimantapa and Vimanas. These are the special aspects of Chola temples. They were Garbhagriha, Mahamantapa, Ardhamantapa, Nandi Mantapa and Vimana. These are the architectural terms. These are the special features of Chola temples. The best example for Chola temples are the Rajarajeshwara temple. Rajarajeshwara temple was one of the finest constructions of the Cholas. This temple was built in the year 1009 CE by Rajaraja Chola first. This temple is also known as Brihadishwara temple. The highlights of this temple was its shikara, which is tallest one, which is 200 feet high. This temple houses a huge Shivalinga and which is very attractive. And this temple has the Nandi statue in front of the Shivalinga, and also Dwarapalaka statue is very attractive. These are the special aspects of the Rajarajeshwara temple or Brihadishwara temple. Another famous temple of the Cholas was at Gangai Konda Cholapuram. This temple was built by Rajendra Chola first. This temple has a shikara of 150 feet high. And this another feature of this Gangai Konda Cholapuram at the temple is 50 pillared Sabha Mantapa of the temple is very attractive. These are the special aspects of Chola architecture. Now let's see the Chola sculpture. Cholas have made a wonderful contribution to the sculpture also. Some special aspects of Chola sculpture are the idols made of stone and metals. Some famous idols of the Chola period are Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, Kalingamardana, Nataraja, Sridevi, etc. are very famous. The bronze image of Nataraja was their best contribution to Indian art. So, this was considered to be one of the finest in India and finest piece of sculpture throughout the world. And that is all from me about the Cholas. And this chapter you should be having 3 important essay questions. For 5 marks, you should be having the questions on Rajaraja Chola and his conquest, Rajendra Chola and his conquest, and important question as far as all the exams concerned is Chola village administration. So, you should learn all these questions, and the notes about 1 marks and 2 mark questions will also be provided along with this. Thank you.